Just a little personal tidbit for you. I'll be married 33 years tomorrow.
To the same guy?
To the same guy. Isn't that amazing? Yes. Oh, awesome. We're back in business. Okay, I want you to thank National Property Inspections. Scott Buckley brought you lunch today, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about National Property Inspections. You have the floor. 5 minutes, go.
Gotcha. We work for Bob McDonough, and Bob's been coming to this office and started the franchise here, wasn't my fault, in 08. So we've been around for a while. We've got 8 full-time inspectors with a 9 bilingual inspector in Omaha training right now. So he'll be ready to go probably early March. But we've got exciting news because we've partnered with a company called Punchlist, and we've got a pre-listing evaluation we want to tell you about because right now it's free. So this is Andrew Wood with Punchlist. He's out of Charleston, South Carolina, but they're coming into Atlanta, and so we've partnered with them. So.
Yeah, so I'm Andrew. I'm with Punchlist. I'm actually a territory manager for Georgia, so I live in just over the border in South Carolina, but I'm here every like Tuesday to Thursday. But you got 2 flyers in front of you for Punchlist. One of them's kind of the bread and butter of what we do, which is we handle real estate repairs based off of home inspections and repair addendums. We do all the estimating, we do all the repairs. We're a turnkey service, speed, communication, all that good stuff is what we focus on. We were started by a former realtor and contractor who saw kind of a void area of need in that part of what you guys do. So our main goal is to do all these repairs for you and get you guys to closings faster. That's kind of the big bulk of what we do, but we partnered up with NPI because we rolled out this pre-listing evaluation. You guys have a flyer in front of you for that pre-listing evaluation product. We're getting a lot more demand for these evaluations because what the goal of those are is to get your houses in tip-top shape to go to market. So it's an evaluation, it's not an inspection. So we're going to be doing about 80% of what you would normally do on a typical home inspection. You got to leave some other stuff for these guys to find later on. But they are the ones that are going to be doing these evaluations though. So they know what they're going to be looking for. They know what they're going to be looking for in the actual inspection too. So we're going to be doing these evaluations and turning around an estimate based off of that evaluation for your clients and giving them the option to have Punchlist do those repairs. So that's kind of the product that we're rolling out. Right now, it's going to be free for you guys to try it out until March 1st. So your clients can try this out for free. We'll do an evaluation for them, give them an estimate. They can have Punchlist do those repairs. After March 1st, these are $250 per evaluation. But if they choose Punchlist to do the repairs after the evaluation, that $250 is credited back towards those repairs. So with all of our products, though, your clients have the option to pay us at closing. They have that option because not everybody has the amount of money up front to fit the bill. So that's just another thing that we offer to help you guys out. So that's kind of the 5-minute spiel. There's a lot more components to it, a lot more great things that we do. But I'll be here after the meeting too, and you guys can.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What
please.
happens if it doesn't close and you've done the repairs?
So what we use is what's called a mechanics lien. So that's
Okay.
we haven't run into that yet.
I'm just curious.
Luckily,
Like,
but
set expectations.
yeah, it's called a mechanics lien. I'm sure you guys have heard of that before, but that's how we handle that if it does happen. But hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great service.
And I've got some news. Oh, did you have a question?
I just wanted to know what things does Punchlist not take care of? Like what things from inspection?
So yeah, great question. So we have our own teams that handle the vast majority of that typical 1 to 2 day Punchlist type jobs. If there's anything that we have to subcontract out, we've got a massive list of our subcontractors that handle all that stuff. One of the things that we haven't really gotten into that I tell people that's not something that we'll handle is like major structural engineering type stuff, but run into that pretty rare.
Okay.
Anybody has any other questions?
What areas? Are there any
All over.
boundaries? Or are you all
No
over?
boundaries.
We pretty much set an open parameter for the Atlanta
You do waterproofing? Like if you find like in the water in the crawl space or basement,
Oh, yeah.
you do the waterproofing too?
We've got folks that can do that. We've got crawl space and foundation teams.
Okay, cool.
Nina.
Alright, so I think I was reading when you were talking, I'm sorry, you probably already said this. So if we have an inspection amendment, can we send that over if y'all didn't do the pre-evaluation?
Yes, so that's what we do mostly. This evaluation is something new that
Something
we're
else,
offering.
okay.
The majority of what we do and how the company started in Charleston was by real estate agents like you guys, homeowners submitting their addendums or inspection reports to us and having them turn around an estimate
Okay,
on
so,
that.
and then the estimate, if we want it within 2 days, is 49, if we want it back within a day, it's $99.
So that's another thing that I need to touch on. I'm glad you said that. Move all that down 1 day. So 2 days free for you guys on everything. 1 day, $49. We'll turn around that estimate. And then the estimate's interactive too. That we'll send you and your client. So you can actually remove anything that's on that estimate that either the homeowner wants to do or that they just don't care about doing anymore. It'll exit out, and the price automatically updates, and you can actually click approve work order on that estimate too, and that'll automatically send an approval to us, and then we'll start scheduling the repair for you guys.
One more thing, for our regular inspections, if we work for the buyer, Punch List they take our inspection report, price everything out for us. So there's another company called Repair Pricer, we've partnered with Punch List, so you'll see them either way on the buyer or listing side. And I need your help, my daughter's getting married, so I have to pay for a wedding, so the more inspections. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I don't want to cater with
Can I
Chick-fil-A,
ask you a
so.
question? So when you do the inspection, does the pricing automatically happen through Punch List, or do you
Yes.
have to ask for it?
Well, within 24 to 48 hours after we give you your report, I think that you upload it to them, or does it go, they'll turn around and send it after they receive it within 24 to 48 hours.
That's with the inspection report.
No,
Is there a
you'll get
charge?
our report
Right,
first.
right.
On the buyer side, then you upload it to Punch List, they will price it out, and then,
Right underneath the little link on their email that has your inspection report for an actual full-blown inspection, there's a little red area that says, we partner with Punch List to get an estimate on this report, click here, you just click here and upload it. Yep.
And hopefully that'll take less stress during that due diligence window. You're not running back and forth to the property like various contractors in. They'll tell you everything, and they actually honor that price. It's a real estimate. So,
Thank you
so
for
much.
lunch, thank you so much.
Appreciate
Charlie from McManamy, McLeod Heller.
Good morning, I'm Charlie Pollard, I'm a closing attorney with McMahon McLeod Heller, Charlie at mmhfirm.com. I got a bunch of cards up at the front desk. If you ever have questions about anything, I'm happy to help you guys out. I'm going to give you a little refresher. Well, first, I would like to handle your next closing, of course, and my daughter's only 6, but you can never start too early, so every one of them helps. But so some refreshers. So nothing new that I'm going to tell you today, but it's starting to warm up. It's starting to be, the spring market is getting here. So you guys do a lot of work to get to the closing, and usually when it gets towards the finish line, there's only so many things that you have under your control that can ensure a smooth, 1 hour closing. And here's a few things that you can do. There's 3 things that you guys actually have control over when you get down to the closing itself. First and foremost is the actual scheduling. Again, I've said this probably 10 times in this room over the years, but the day and time of day that you set up your closing can affect how smooth that closing goes. Without fail, the busiest days of any given month at any closing attorney's office, firm, and any lender that's churning out these documents is going to be the last day of the month. It doesn't matter what day of the week that is. The last day of the month and the 15th, they're always the most closing. So if you can avoid those days, then that means the closing attorney's office and your lender, they just have less closings to focus on that time. So you've got a better chance of having a smooth closing. So the day of the month, Fridays are always the busiest, so if you can avoid a Friday, go for that, same reason. And then time of day is important too, because if you have a closing at 4 o'clock, sometimes that wire from the lender does not get in there. in time for us to cut checks. A lot of times people will say, okay, fine, we're waiting for the wire, it's gonna fund at 9 a.m. the next morning. But sometimes sellers don't wanna give those keys over until they got the money, which is understandable, obviously. So if you can avoid 4 o'clock, I would do that too. Again, you can always schedule those times because people have lives and you gotta do it, but something to always keep in mind, because that's something you do have a little control over to help make the closing a little smoother. 2 other things. One is walkthroughs. I mean, obviously you wanna do that as close usually to the closing as possible to make sure that you know actually what you're buying, that a tree hasn't fallen, things like that. But if you've got substantial repairs, things you've got that, these punch lists that we were just talking about, if they're putting on a new roof or fixing a chimney or something major, you don't want to see that the morning before because that can throw off the whole day. You have to start, putting new dollar amounts in the settlement statement. It ruins the day, and you really want to have a cherry on top for all the work that you've done and a good taste in your mouth. So do that a day before. Do that 2 days before to make sure you actually have time to rectify that before the actual closing day. The last thing is wires. Okay, obviously you don't have any control about when the lender wire is coming in. But you do have control a little bit about the buyer's cash to close. A lot of buyers want to see that final exact number that they should have 3 days ahead of time. A cash deal, they sometimes, depending on how busy the attorney's office is, they may not see it that far ahead. A lot of times people want to have that exact precise number, but they don't have to send that number. If you send the wire, if you get a number close enough, I would always ask buyers to send it a day before, 2 days before. Obviously, you go through your due diligence of making sure that the numbers are correct, and we always send an encrypted link to our wiring instructions because obviously everyone should be rightfully paranoid about going to the right place. The timing is important too. So day before, 2 days before, and if the number changes, they can bring a personal check for a couple $1,000s, at least in our firm. Especially if it's your clients, we can have a little wiggle room on that. So usually under $5,000 difference, they can bring a cashier's check. Under about $2,000, they can bring a personal check. So let them send the lion's share early, just so you're not sitting around waiting for that to happen, because that can ruin a closing day too. Okay, and if they send too much, we cut them a check at the closing. So just 3 things, a little refresher. Keep in mind before it starts getting really busy. So that's all I've got today.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thanks, Charlie.
Okay, so we've got classes coming up. Robert, could you hit the light back there for me? Thank you. All right, so daily magical mornings from 8:45 to 11 right in this very room. Ignite continues Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. You can check the calendar if you need a refresher on a topic. Our productivity committee meeting is Wednesday today at 1 o'clock. Thank you, Kelly. Yes. Bold continues tomorrow. Dot Loop is on Friday at 12:30. Family reunion starts Saturday, and we will be live streaming, so I'm going to give you the live stream links, and we're going to send it out to you later today. And license law on Monday at 1 o'clock with Nan Ellington. And Meet the Market Center, if you know anybody that is interested in either getting into real estate or has just gotten their license and wants to learn about our market center, have them come to Meet the Market Center. That's what that is for. Okay, any questions about the calendar?
One more thing to add, Productivity Committee is doing a mastermind on the 26th of February from 12:30 to 2. And it's all about listings, so you've got a listing and now what do you do about it?
All right, so here are your live streams from Family Reunion. There you go. So if you're not going, you can be there, right? So here are the different live streams. Got lots of command. The keynote session on Saturday at 1:30 with Gary would be really important.
That's gonna be awesome.
That's going to be awesome. YKW is focusing on tech and open Q&A. The vision speech on Sunday at 11 o'clock Eastern time. And State of the Company Monday at 9:30 Eastern time. So those are all with Gary and team. So we will send this link out to you. We'll send this page out to you so you can access it. If you want to take a picture of it, great, that's fine. And you want to tell them how to get there?
Yes,
Okay.
so
Take it away, Kayla.
even without the link, you all have access to these pages. All you have to do is go to kwconnect.com click on the resources tab. The first link underneath the resources tab is KW Connect Live. You click that page, and once they're live, the link should be there.
Any
That's all we
questions
need.
about
Yes, any questions?
seeing what's happening at Family Reunion? Oh, okay, great, thank you. And I bet you all wanna know who the winners are from our cap contest, and Erin and I will be announcing them tomorrow. We're gonna go live on Facebook in the afternoon, so watch your emails and Facebook for the announcement of our contest winners for a full cap and our half cap winners.
Fine.
Yes? Okay, we didn't forget. And who's that pretty girl? Okay, Robert, can you hit the light again? Thank you. Come on up. Just come sit. So Jill and I go way back. Jill goes way back even before me. We were together at First Atlanta. Jill was one of the first agents at First Atlanta. She worked out of the Rawls basement. Before, yeah, there were a few of you before there was an office. So I'm delighted. Jill is in our office. She is our family, and she has a mission that I have promised her that our market center and our clients can help her reach this goal. So I'm going to let her talk about that.
Awesome,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay.
Just wanna make sure we're committed.
Let's see. It's
Oh,
working.
we are.
Yeah.
So, hey everyone. I don't usually see a lot of you because I'm in my hole right behind this closet. And I very rarely come out of it. I'm down there trying to, make calls, get listings, sell some real estate. So when I'm not in there, I'm actually in the field looking at the real estate. But I'm here today because Dory's been so kind to give me a few minutes to talk about this very exciting opportunity that I've had. I've been nominated by the Leukemia Lymphoma Society in Atlanta for their Man and Woman of the Year campaign for 2019. And our office is going to be one of the sponsors. We probably have a handful of Rawls Group offices that are going to be participating. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about why this is important and how we can all rally around and also use this as a potential client touch, because we're going to use this as an office effort. So here we go. So Kayla Williams has been really a huge force behind my business. I started here in 1999, and in 2006 I was diagnosed with cancer. And those first several years here at Keller Williams, I was building my profit sharing downline, and the downline is the reason why my business survived cancer the first time around. So it's on a delay here, I think. Hang on. There you go. So Jennifer Prince is my sponsor.
I did good.
She was in the basement with us. We had fun. So 2018 was my 20th year in Atlanta real estate, and coming into the 21st year in Atlanta real estate, it happens to be the 20th year that Keller Williams has been here in Atlanta. So having a 20th real estate anniversary plus the Keller Williams anniversary, I thought being nominated for this candidate class was really appropriate. And as it turns out, I'm the only realtor that has been nominated for the candidate class, and therefore the only real estate company that's going to be in the class for 2019. So it's me and 29 other professionals in the community and the business community that are going to be trying to raise some money.
So has everybody there had cancer?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
So there may be probably connections to cancer in some way. We all probably have. We know somebody, and or have been involved in the organization in some other way, just connected to it somehow. So this is just a little bit about what the program is. It's a 10-week challenge that opens March 29th. We can't collect money yet, but right now we're talking about it. We're trying to get corporate pledges and personal and individual pledges. So somebody wants to donate $500, we have a pledge form, and they just promise to pay when the link is live. So the more of those we can get, the better off we will be down the line, because, you know, I want to be Woman of the Year. So my big why, I'm a 2-time cancer survivor. I had uterine cancer in 2006, as I mentioned. I had a full radical hysterectomy. I was 35 years old, and I had only been in the business not long, and I had been building a team, and that is where the profit sharing kind of supported me getting through the business, through the surgery and chemotherapy. And then I got to come back into the market when it was in the downturn. It was so much fun. But Keller Williams, as usual, saw me through. And that's Kelly Day. She's in First Atlanta. We were at I think this was Mega Agent with Kenny Loggins. He's signing her back. So Kenny Loggins did a private concert for 300 of us for that Mega in Austin. It was pretty fun. But that's me with my growing back hair. So at 40, I decided I wanted to, and I was a 5-year cancer survivor at the time, I decided I was going to try to run. And so I wanted to try to run, stay healthy, and be tied to an impactful cause. So I joined Team in Training, and they got a wind of my, Georgia Publix Marathon got a wind of my cause and the reason for my story, and they did a full story on me in the AJC and on the Publix website and Facebook page. Raised over $20,000 through Team in Training for LLS over about 5 races. And in right before, this is a childhood friend of mine, and right before the week after we graduated college, she was diagnosed with leukemia. And for 4 years, she kind of sequestered herself and got mad at herself and was trying to ask every question, like, how did I contract this? Why am I getting sick? All of our friends were out trying to get a life at 22, 23 years old, and her life was never the same. So she lost her battle 4 years later. And but the cool thing about it was that she got to meet her bone marrow donor on Oprah. And it was really, really cool. I don't think we have time to play it, but I'm gonna, when I follow up with this meeting, I'll send you the link. While I was going through my chemo, my father-in-law, my husband's father, was going through chemo for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. We shaved our heads at the same time. We finished chemo at the same time, and he went on to survive. He unfortunately passed 5 years later, but he survived. He survived for the second time.
He's tall like Charlie.
He's tall like Charlie. Yeah. My husband's 6'9". He's about 6'8". So this is why I think it's really important for our office to kind of rally behind, because we can leverage the fact that we've been 20 years in the Atlanta market. We're going to have a KWPR fundraising link. So if you wanted to create an 8x8 or a 12x12 or a weekly email or whatever you wanted to touch your clients and let them know, this is what we're doing as an office, you know, a fellow agent, this is what she's gone through. I'll have a little blurb of a story. You're not going to have to write anything. I'll just give you content. You can cut and paste it and share the link. And if your clients are willing to donate and participate, that would be great. So last year's Woman of the Year raised $208,000 in the 10-week period. So naturally, my goal is at least 210.
5.
You know, but the overall reaching goal for Team Hynek would be 250 is the overreaching goal. The whole campaign, the 30 candidates are trying to raise 1.6 million in that 10-week period. They raised, I think last year's class raised 1.3-ish. So we know they're going crazy. And it's not all about corporate sponsorships. There's a lot of individual sponsorships that do come in, or donations that come in, trickle along the way. And I think, this is a good one. So we'll also be supplying some of this, these stats so you can share them with clients. But I think what's really cool is that when people see that you're connected to a community cause, they want to participate. They just naturally feel connected to you, so maybe they'll feel connected to the cause as well. And then when the culmination of this campaign is on June 8th, at the Intercontinental in Buckhead, and that's hopefully where I will be accepting my award for
Visualize it.
But I will not know until then, unfortunately. We don't know who's getting what all along the way, so it's kind of like in a multiple offer situation. You don't know what's happening. So I'm just going to be behind here just sending out emails and giving you content and anything that you need to support, anything that you wanted to do in the way of an 8x8 or if you wanted to reach out to clients. So this is just some of the corporations that were behind us. The Woman of the Year was is in the C-suite at Piedmont Hospital, so she's re-involved again this year, and I'm meeting with her, and hopefully she's going to be also supporting my campaign. But these are just a sampling of the companies that are involved. And lastly but not least, we honor a boy and a girl who are currently going through chemo or who are recent survivors. And so, the idea here is to raise enough money to have the research to eliminate cancer down the line. So hopefully this little recap gives you some good information. If you have any questions, I think Joy will be able to send out my email and a little bit of content for you, and happy to answer anything. That's it.
Anybody have any questions for Jill? Thank you. So we have pledged to raise. So KWPR has pledged to raise at least $12,500 to support Jill's cause, and so I think it would be a great touch to send out to your sphere, because like Jill said, people like getting behind causes and worthwhile causes, and Jill's story is extremely impactful. So we will definitely help you hit your goals. Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. All righty. Want to talk about pricing listings to sell? Yes? Come on down, ladies. Nina, Kelly, and Ashton, come on.
Pictures.
You can sit in front of your
The blinds. And now I was looking at that picture, it was like a selection. Yeah, that's right. You have to be blind to price to know the numbers.
I did not do that on purpose.
It just happened.
It just
Dye your hair,
happened.
step one.
There you go. Blonde hair, more color. Sit on it and go up there.
Oh, no, wrong way. I don't need to go higher, I need to go lower.
Sit on it. Lower. Sit on it.
Oh, sit on it. What the Ashton do that?
There you go. So, as we discussed last week at our stats meeting, our opportunity to get to the closing table is to price our houses to sell from the start. And 50% of houses have to have a price reduction. Let me repeat that. 50% of homes have to have a price reduction. That's a whopping percentage. So whether that be the correction in the market, the shift, whatever it is, I thought let's bring in some expert to talk about how you list in a shifting correctional market. Okay, so we know who you are because your names are up here. Just tell us a little bit about yourself. Go, Nina.
Okay, my name's Nina Harris. I've been in real estate almost 18 years. Yeah, crazy. I started with KW. I started working with Madeline. I actually started out not licensed as her assistant when Madeline shared an office with Jill. We were all in there together. So over the years, we've done it all, and then in the past probably 3 to 4, then Madeline and I have transitioned into the listing agents on the team. And then last year we sold 154 homes for close to $80 million. And about half of that was listings. So we're about half buyers, half sellers.
Kelly.
Kelly Chansey, I've been licensed since May '05, and over the time I was individual agent, moved on to developing a team, so I have a awesome full-time buyer's agent, Michael. So my goal is to focus on the listings, and so that has been 4 years? 4 years. So that's been my focus.
Okay.
So.
Ashton.
Yeah, I'm Ashton Ernst with the Justin Landis Group. I actually run our listing team. We sold just under 150 listings last year. And I've been in the business about almost 6 years now, so I'm rounding into my 6th year.
Okay.
All with this
All
office.
with Keller Williams. Okay, so tell us what you're seeing compared to the summertime with your listings.
Yeah, so I'll be happy to start. I would say the biggest difference is not even from last summer, because I felt like last year we didn't really have a summer market, at least for our inventory of listings we didn't. It felt like the window of opportunity was tighter last year, and that things began to shift seasonally quicker than they had the year before. So the first thing that we noticed is that our listings were not as invincible as they were before. We were negotiating more on the back end of a contract, so during the due diligence period, tougher terms overall, and less movement from the buyer's side. So I felt like that created a little bit of a storm of hostility between the buyers and the sellers, and since then we've kind of continued to see the same thing. So during probably from May on last year, we had to be very, very careful about how we were pricing our listings.
I'd say last year we had a big emphasis on condition of our homes, because I felt, with the exception maybe one of you boys, you all did great on that though. But that being said, we did, so what I had noticed though is beginning of the year, you always get these calls of people thinking sometime this year we want to sell. So we got a lot of those calls, and some people said, I'll meet you in February, but we may not do till June or July. And I had to realize quickly that I had to redo that conversation, and I probably didn't honestly catch on until like fall. Mm-hmm. So I was probably, still under the assumption that June, July would have been still a great time to start to list. And so, but we realized early last year that if your house was not in great condition, it was not selling quickly. But after that, the pricing conversation, I probably honestly did not pick up on that until late fall. So we had to rethink how we price.
Nina?
Thinking about it, I mean, honestly, I think we're much better than we were last summer, right? Like summer, we always tell people that, and especially now, like now is the spring market. Mm-hmm. Like the spring market kind of ends in March practically, maybe a little bit April, but May is it. I mean, there's nothing. We're closing a lot of houses that people aren't listing because it's mayhem. It's the new December is the way we describe it. I mean, people are going out of town, schools, you got school parties and sport parties and everything, and then for whatever reason, Atlanta, in our opinion, or in our experience, year after year, it's been pretty quiet after May.
Yes.
So, right now we're actually busier. I think it's just a lot of preparation, and that's what we tell people. They're like, oh, spring market. And so when we have conversations, whether it's the fourth quarter of last year, it could be as early as January. So if they're ready to go and inventory's low, what are you waiting on? Mm-hmm. You want to compete against all the rest of the houses? No, let's get on the market. Mm-hmm. Because really, truly, I feel, first quarter like I said, come May, we really usually see a screeching halt. And I don't really feel that this year's going to be any different.
Okay, so how do you talk to your sellers about pricing when we're seeing down arrows in the line item report that the agents are not getting it right, or sellers are convincing agents to take it overpriced?
I laugh because last time we did stats, that slide, all things were pointing we're still in a healthy market, right? And so that was my conversation. I do think that you gotta be careful what you say to people. And we still tell people, and I really truly think it's gonna be a good year for real estate. We are, and we've been saying for the past 2 years that we're heading into a normal, stabilized market. Everything, it's healthy. Sales are gonna be good. I think it's gonna be a good spring. But yeah, so normalizing means that we may not be able to push the price. So we do a lot of education up front. And I'll tell you one of our little things that we've done and we've done this for a while, so it's not just going into the spring market, is we do a lot of pre-marketing. So if there's ever an idea that we can push the price a little, then we may pre-market and inflate the price. We can put our feelers out there, see how many of you are interested and have buyers, and that might tell us, okay, there's enough demand for it, then we can push it a lot, or a little bit. If there's nothing, then maybe it's crickets and we need to go a little bit more aggressive when we hit the market, because when you're entered in the computer, we always say, then you're married to the price. We can pre-market it a little bit more, but once we go live, we're live.
Kelly, Ashton.
So the conversations I've been having so far this year and all my listing appointments is I love that chart that has, you know, like 2013 was here, and then 2014 was here, and 2015, and all the multicolors. And I bring that out all the time, and I said, and especially if they've been my client, I remember the story. If they're not my client, I ask about their home buying experience, why they bought that home and their experience, and I look at obviously the year from the tax records. And I've talked a lot about, because you know, we're at the peak of any home ever sold in Metro Atlanta, like ever, price-wise. With maybe some few exceptions, but like 99% is the highest price in any area ever right now. So we talk a lot about when you are, like 2007 was a peak price, but you bought 13, it was still below 7. When you're buying at a discounted price, you're okay with not like out of your wish list at 10, you're okay when it's 7. Because you know you're getting like 30-40% off, or if you're 2010, that was 50% off. You're okay 7, but when you're buying top ever in Atlanta, you want 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10. So I have to explain that mindset to sellers and understanding, because they come in with their past experience when they bought, which was 30% off at the peak at 07, or maybe just 1 year out of the recovery or something. And so I have to try to shift their mindset of what is the buyer expecting when you're buying the top ever in Atlanta. And then regarding pricing, I thank God for those stats the last week, because like I say, 50% off. But people watch that. They have kind of watched, you know, in MLS, they see the little down arrows and stuff like that. So that's becoming an easier conversation. But the conversation again on, you know, with condition and pricing is talking about buyers' mindsets at a top priced market.
Yeah. I think it's really important not to set the, and I say this all the time, but not to set the final price of the property until just before you head to the market. We're in a rapidly changing market, and every market is rapidly changing. So let's make sure we've got the great pulse of the market, and a good handle on where do we need to be. I recall this time last year, I was telling people different prices than what I had told them 3 months prior to that, and it was lower. And that's probably going to continue to be the same trend, because we've got to, you know, depending on their situation, do they have 2 weeks to sell the house, or do we need to sell it that weekend? And that's, you know, our listings are still selling. They're still selling quickly when they're priced right, when the condition is right. So you do have to be really careful about what you're presenting out to the market. If, in my opinion, if it takes another 2 weeks to get the house in tip-top shape and another $5,000, it's going to make a lot of sense for them down the line to be in more of a, you know, a place of power throughout the negotiation, throughout the entire contract negotiations. I think also you need to set expectations with your clients that buyers are going to ask for more during the due diligence period. You know, we generally told them to budget somewhere between 1 and 2% of the contract sales price. We sell a lot of old houses, so that has been pretty on par. But now we're seeing more like 2 to 3%. And if I feel like the house is not in tip-top shape, I will, you know, set an expectation that we're gonna, while it's really cute and cosmetically looks great, I know that probably there's going to be something in that crawl space. So let's go ahead and set them up for success on that end. So it all goes, if you go back and you read Shift bulletproofing the transaction, and if you're going to family reunion or you're watching here in the office, I would, you know, suggest watching anything around that, because that is really going to be your guideline for how you need to set your clients up for success, as you know, as well as yourself.
How about how do you overcome objections when your seller says, well, my neighbor just sold their house 3 months ago, they didn't have to do anything and they sold it for $25,000 more than you're telling me I can list my house at?
Sure, and I think it's all about expectations because, you know, we're just not in that same market. And I would be, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'd be doing you a disservice by coming in here and telling you that this is an achievable number and an achievable, you know, at this current condition.
Write that down.
So, you know, there's no reason that you should be overpricing property. We created our own shift by overpricing property. That's exactly what happened. See all those down arrows? That's because people were letting their clients dictate the price and they weren't dictating their own price. So
Because who's the expert?
we're the expert, but the client, you know, whoever was overpricing those properties made their client feel like they were the expert, and we created our own shifting market without the inventory creating it. So
We're the expert, but while we are, we make it very known, like I sit across from them and say, we're telling you, whether it's a range or a price. So I'm telling you this today, but next week it's gonna be different. So it's gonna be constant communication. That's why it's so important that we're watching the market and having these kind of conversations. And then, I don't know.
That's today's price. Because depending on what sells tomorrow may change the price.
And I use the stock market as a good analogy. So, you know, at one point the Dow almost hit 27,000 like a year and a half ago. But now it's still doing great. It's like 25.5, which is still up from what it was 3 years ago. So we're saying, hey, it's still great. It's still up.
still a good time.
But there were a moment that if we all could pick this accurately, we'd have all won the lottery and we'd have all done something different in our lives. But if we always could know where the peak is or that, we would have done that. But as we know, that goes and fluctuates, and you know, we have to look at the snapshot of today's market. And again, if it's like I'm meeting people today, and we're not going to list till April or so forth. And I said, well, I'm guaranteeing this for the next couple of weeks. We're going to revisit again, and certainly I watch competition, and we're going to know. We're going to price with competition.
So Nina and Kelly, you were in the market in 2008. What were those conversations, and are they sounding like the conversations of today?
We're getting a little bit more there. We used to say, well, we could have a glass of wine and sit down and you name your price. What do you want to list? Like we literally would joke about it and say, sure, we can try it. It's not the case anymore. Debbie Downer. I mean, I literally told a seller last week, and I said, well, you had me here to tell you what I thought, not what you wanted. You didn't want me to tell you what you wanted to hear.
Right.
You know, then I'm not doing my job, pretty much. So, I mean, it's all about pricing. It comes down to price and condition, constantly watching the market as a partnership. I tell them, I don't make the market, you don't make the market. So even what I think is the price may not be the price. I mean, really, truly, because we don't set the price in the market. It's the buyers out there that are determining the value. So that's why it's constantly changing, and we're constantly looking at it. What we like to do, which and we love doing this, is Malin and I, no matter what listing appointment, if she and I are going together, if we're going separately, we've got them coming up, we always look at prices independently. So while, even if you're an individual agent, buddy up with somebody, because that is the best, it's the most
we do it all the time.
Oh, we always do, just to make sure, because it is so important. And I tell people, I'm like, we're a 2-for-1 deal. She looks at numbers separately, I look at numbers separately, and then we come back together because we want to be doubly sure that when we hit the market, we get the price right. And 9 times out of 10, it's really kind of strange that how we are like dead on the pricing. But there are some times that we will have a $25,000 or a $50,000 difference, and that right there tells us, maybe we need to look into this pricing a little bit more and figure out kind of where we need to go.
I think it's also, to piggyback on that, it's also great to enlist a buyer's agent or someone who primarily works with buyers.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Because that, you know, they're gonna see it, the buyer's agents are always lower. Every time I shoot them a listing, they always say lower. So it's just good, you know, that's why I'm a listing agent. But it's good to see that different, you know, that different perspective and a few more eyes on it. You know, I shoot it to 5 or 6 people just to on our team just to kind of see what they think. Ultimately, I always feel like my price is better, but they still get some good insight. So
I just want to say, I love your script because I know people always ask, what do I say? Like, you know, how do you intro it? when you're about to say, hey, here's your price, but you're strict of like, you had me here for me to tell you what I was thinking, not what you want to hear, or what me as the expert, me, what I do every day. What I'm interpreting, not what you want me, and if you can go ahead and break that ice, I feel like when you like maybe land the ball that it may be a little lower than their expectations, you kind of not just drop, you can slide in a little easier.
Well, and then I push it off into the market.
Correct.
Because it's not, I'm not setting the price, you're not setting the price, it's what the buyers are gonna think. So I always tell them, the only way to underprice your house is to not put it on the market, truthfully. I really believe that, and I tell them that, because you're not opening it up to the masses. I said, you will not underprice your house, because if it's on the market and you put it out to everybody that's looking in the demand, it will automatically be bid up to fair market value. Period.
Great.
Even if you listed it at $1, I would suggest not trying that experiment. I think it's also important to note that the price reductions, to go back to that first question of like what's the biggest change that we saw, you know, I noticed that the price reductions weren't working.
Correct.
They weren't selling the house. And it was still, and if I got an offer on a listing after it had been on the market 1 week, the difference between a first weekend offer and a second weekend offer would be about a swing of $10,000 to $20,000.
Agreed.
When they're coming in low, they're coming in real low. So I think that that's really important to notate. You need to also keep your deals together, because if you go back to the market, it's going to be a heck of a lot less.
Yep.
So what do you think your percentage is recently of pricing to sell, to get it under contract and sold?
100%.
100%, okay.
I'll tell you, because I just looked this up for a client. So I was really pleased to see for 2017 and 18 we were 100%. Woo. This year to date, though, we are 97.4, which I do
That's
think
really
it's
interesting. That's what
I
the
think part
stats
of
show.
it's timing, coming off of the fall and going into the beginning of the year. But that alone to me was like, oh, I do feel like the transactions going through the inspections, it's harder to keep a deal going than it's been in the past. So that's also a
So
sign.
services like, punch list and things of that sort are great to use on the listing side too. Bulletproof your transactions, use a pre-evaluation, before you list it if you feel like there's gonna be issues, because it's nice to get ahead of those things. Even if you know that the roof is super old and it's going to need replaced, why don't you just go ahead and have an evaluation on it, because maybe it doesn't need replaced. And then it sets a proper expectation for your client as well as for the negotiation down the line.
And what we did last year is we staged everything, just about, and I felt like that actually made us sell first, because we would be, I had a lot of condos, but several condos last year, and it made us sell first. And then we did get price. I can't say I'm 100% when I do my average list to sell price, but I am like over 98. That being said, we and again, it's what you focus on, expand. We focused on condition last year, knowing that we just felt things slow a little bit, so we're like, we're gonna at least be the prettiest.
Did you physically stage, or did you do any virtual staging?
Oh, I
Did you do
physically
any?
staged just about every house.
You did, okay, so
Either
even if it's a
their
condo, you
furniture-
still put furniture
Yeah,
and
we
stuff
either
up.
rented-
Okay.
Either we rented or we made sure their house was
Was
staged
staged.
with their furniture looking good, and we got rid of their not so looking good stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's very, yeah.
But I mean, if it's a vacant, do they actually pay the $2,500 or
Yes.
whatever to
And
go in?
The good news about, for most people, I feel like we still have this little window of opportunity, is they bought in 13, and it was like, 30% off of 2007's peak. Or they bought in 10, and I still had, or even 14, 15, so there's still great margin
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
them
great.
from what they paid
Yeah.
to what they're gonna sell in 19. So it wasn't like an uncomfortable conversation like we had when we were in the recession of like 10, where you're like going, I know you're losing like 50%. It's not
And
that,
now I need you to redo your kitchen and your bathrooms,
Right.
and you're gonna have to ask for less.
thank God we're not having those type of conversations, because people fortunately actually have equity, most actually have equity. So if I ask you to do 2,500, I thought okay about it.
Interestingly, our stats are showing that we're outperforming the industry in taking listings. What we're not outperforming is getting them closed. So our written volume is down. Keller Williams Peachtree Road.
Oh.
We're outpacing taking listings. We're not outpacing getting them closed.
Is it because it's taking longer to sell them, or what?
Not keeping the deal together.
Not keeping the deal together. It was
Losing the
priced too
listing.
high to start with,
Right.
and then reductions, and then maybe after so many reductions, you lost it to another agent because it didn't sell. We're
Well,
analyzing that data.
And I do feel, don't tell me if you think differently, I do think there's, in this market that we're entering, although it's not all that different, I think there's less forgiveness to correct the price.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
So it's so much more important to get it right off the bat, because I tell the sellers, I was like, the worst thing I can do is call you in 2 weeks. You don't want me asking you to reduce the price.
It'll
It's like
be a
time
tougher
does
conversation.
nobody any good in real estate. None.
What's your conversation today if they wanna really overprice it dramatically?
Tell me more about that. Let them talk.
Okay.
There may be some other, reason that they have in their head, and if you have a conversation, engage in a conversation.
It's much better to do it on the front end.
I'd
than have to
rather
fight it on the back end.
determine what are their sticking points, and see if you can't overcome it to begin with, and get them, and have them realize where you're coming from. I often ask people, what do you think the value is of your home?
Right.
I do.
Always do.
And yeah, sometimes you get people, well, that's why you're here. And then I say, well, I'm not necessarily gonna agree with you, so.
Or you're not buying the house either.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So.
I do think that's key. I always ask before I ever give out my price, I ask theirs. And, cause I have to know how much gap I need to overcome.
Well, I'm saying, you wanna see how realistic they are.
Yeah.
Or
And
are
how
they,
realistic.
are they actual sellers or are they wannabe sellers? You know, it's either wanna sell, need to sell, or maybe,
Not
maybe
motivated.
sell. Not, the motivated sellers are gonna be the ones that you need to go after, and I think there's been a lot of non-motivated sellers or only market motivated sellers. If I can get my price, if they start doing the if stuff and the I don't have to sell stuff, then you probably need to rein them in. I like to ask them the pricing, I like to have a pricing conversation with them before I even go, because I know what kind of, gap I need to fill, and how much data I'm gonna have to bring with me to support kind of the pricing that I'm suggesting. But I do find that more and more people, I'm just so convincing that people just listen to me, I guess, but I think people are just more savvy about the market. I think the one way that the online data has helped us is that people can see those things now, and it makes it for a little bit more of a realistic client in some ways. So
Going back to motivation, obviously we have to understand very much why they want to sell, and I speak very much of that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure y'all do.
Go back to
So if it's because they want to get into like a bigger home, like they're having a baby, they're so forth, so on, getting married, obviously that is the reason we're gonna price well, is to get you there. And then the other thing is, actually, this is my personal feelings. I've been hearing lots of coming soons right now. And it used to be where I would hear here, there a little bit, but I get this sense like there's gonna be a lot of competition come March, probably right when my folks see them on the list. But that being, yeah, it'll be on the same week. But that being said, is like, like the good news about, you can see through our Facebook groups, talking to people, if I hear coming soon, great. I'm gonna use it for our buyer's advantage, but I'm also using it to understand going, I know we're gonna have so much more competition, and I speak of that I have a large network of real estate agents, which y'all do here, and the Realist Group and so forth, and I've heard so many coming soon, let's get ahead of the market, and let's not be the one, let's be the one that, if we know two of the same neighborhoods coming up, let's make sure we don't come in top, let's come in realistic.
I have a question, so regarding pricing, what is your response or your conversation around, the Zestimate?
I say Zillow's a great place to search, but don't ever look at the prices.
I think you have to look at the actual data, and especially in, while I always use an example, in a 2007 built John Whelan neighborhood in Alpharetta, it probably is going to be pretty accurate.
Yeah.
For your house in Grant Park, it's not going to be accurate, you know, because you've got $1 million house and one that's sold for 150. You cannot. It goes by an algorithm of price per square foot. You can't justify the same price per square foot for a brand new construction, and that's at $1 million and a tear down.
Well, and homeowners can go in and put their value in.
They can.
So all that changes, and we know instances where Zillow has wiped out previous estimates and stuff that's in there. Now, I will say, if we have, you know, let's be honest, because there are oftentimes Madeline and I come back and we're always like, what do we know? I mean, pricing is really hard. There's not a science to it.
Yeah.
So sometimes, if it's really tough, I will pull up Estate League, Zillow, Redfin, and I'm gonna check with all the estimates, because that'll, if I look at all of them, it'll help also
Do an average of all of
determine,
them.
point me to a little bit more of a more accurate price point, because there's some that are just that hard. So,
And I always ask if they've had a Zillow appraiser come into the house. With a smile on my face. I know it's a little flippant. However, they're getting their records from tax records, and tax records are not always right. So, Al.
Twice I've been to the Zillow spiel where they're trying to sell their favorite agent programs, and each time the Zillow representative said Atlanta was one of their least reliable, least accurate markets in the country.
That's interesting to know. Right, that.
You know, and that's
never
very.
sold price per square foot.
They don't know, and their definition of accurate was like within 20%. I mean, it was something ridiculous. So they admitted themselves they don't get it.
It's a tool. I do think that you need to look at it before you go to a listing appointment, because they're looking at it. You know, whatever the sites are, look at it quickly on your way over there when you're doing your stats for them, because it will be something that comes up at some point in time. So
Yeah, be prepared.
we know where their expectation is, and now we have to fill that gap.
Are you getting any sense from sellers, well, I don't wanna put my house on the market until I can find the perfect house, so it delays them putting their house on the market and shortens our inventory? You hearing that?
Sure, we hear it all the time, and we tell people we've never had anybody go homeless. Pretty sure we can handle that. And yes, while all the stars kind of have to align, I love saying the perfect opportunity doesn't present itself until you're in a position to buy it. I mean, really, truly. So.
Yeah, I think you just need to have a strategy for that. You know, you need to, depending on their financial status and state, you need to have a strategy specifically for making that move transitionally easy.
Are you guys using any contingencies to sell?
I've seen more and more come across on listings recently. You know, so I think it's a little bit easier in some depends on where you're selling and where you're buying at. But I found that if they're selling in a hotter area than what they're buying in, then they might be able to get a contingency. I accepted one on a listing last week.
I meant more so like when you represent the seller, like you're telling the buyer, I'll accept your contract and it's contingent on my seller finding their forever
I've never
home.
done that.
Okay.
We have one.
People, they accepted
How
it?
did that work out?
But this was also a house in Roswell that I think we had 10 offers and got bid over by $30,000. So it was one of those anomalies that we could totally do it. But otherwise, no, we've never done it.
Okay.
We just have a really big conversation up front with the seller.
I mean, Plan B, it's
Plan B.
They're temp housing, most of my people are going right into temp housing, their
good
goal is to sell the house.
The good news is depending on the price point, often the buyer for the house, they're coming from a lease. So you're gonna have a little bit more wiggle room.
Makes
And
it a little easier.
yeah, it does make it a little more easy.
Joe, what's the conversation you have with people to get them into temporary housing? Cause I think that's a great conversation to have. If they have to sell their house in order to buy, have that conversation and have them fully approved, ready to go, that they look like a cash offer, so they're not in temporary housing that long.
Yeah, last year 50% of my deals were double deals.
There you go.
So every conversation was, the goal, right, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is to sell the house, and we wanna sell it, you know, at the highest and best that the market will bear. So, tell me what your plans are when the house sells. well, we need to find a house. Well, we're going to be looking for a house, but in the event that the house, we get the best contract possible, what's plan B? And so then we have the conversation about temp housing, and we've already secured it, usually right before we go live. So within the first week or two, we're under contract and they're moving in 45 days to temp housing. Now, in the midst, they could be finding the house,
Right.
and then that changes, but we're already talking about that pre-market. I've already sent them apartment contacts to help them find apartments or houses. I've already set up a rental agent with them if they wanna look at a house, they're already secured. So, most of my people don't really push back because they wanna sell the house and they wanna cash out before they buy something else.
I think the beauty is because people are using their equity. So that's where I think the temp housing is easy to, present to them. And then again, we do this several times where, honestly, people, we plan for the worst, but really honestly, more often than not, very good happens.
Yeah, right.
So meantime, Michael's out showing them homes while we're prepping for it. They're gonna find
find
like
something.
5 houses they like, and then we're like, okay, let's just wait till we get it under contract, boom.
Right.
Well, and we would explain to them our kind of process, the whole team, we're all working together while we're working on the listing, while the buyer's team is out helping you, I'm also calling around all agents and database and everybody that, I know lives or works in the area that you're looking, so we can uncover and come across anything that's gonna be coming onto the market. So we will find them. We're really good at finding them stuff, so we can kind of reassure them. I have a question. I'm curious, when you're on your listing appointment, you do your spiel, like one, how long do they take now? And then how much time and how much are you spending on comps and going through the actual numbers? Generally.
I'll say, like, I've always been impressed at how quick you say you do yours, but I've never had like I have occasionally super quick listing appointments because it's easy, but I tend to go a good hour and a half.
Easy because you've already got it, because the referral.
Yeah, it's a referral, and this one would be like, if it's a condo, like, we're gonna price your parents, like,
Yeah,
all I'm doing is just telling you we're gonna
It's more
stage
by the
it.
way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those, and then I can spend my time building the relationship with the client.
Mhm.
And that's what I spend most of my time doing, because it's condo, and we know that this floor plan sold at this price range, and we're at this level, and blah, 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 and there's this much competition. So, that being said, I've actually, I probably usually take a good hour and a half, cause I would, and I've actually had to learn this, cause I'm one of these people, I kinda like book my day like nonstop, and then, cause I like to not have too much interruption, and so I've actually had to learn to put more margin in case we need to talk more. So before I book the next appointment, or by the time I have to leave to be there, so I spend, I don't know, probably an hour and a half. If it's a referral, we spend probably, because I build a relationship, if it's based on someone who just called me, I still plan an hour and a half.
And do you dissect the comps there with them? If it's like a house and not so black and white?
Yeah.
Yeah, you go for it.
But what when I say I talk on, well, and it's case by case, because like if you have a house that's like has some oddities to it, I have to explain the interior, like the interior of their house. I have to say like I have, here's the comp, but if you look at these pictures, they're beautiful. They all painted neutral. They did this. When I talk competition, they're what to expect. But time-wise, I bring everything, and based on as we're there.
And in print or online?
Both.
Both?
I am one of those people, I have everything.
So do you scan through on like an iPad or?
I print everything. It's 45 minutes, give or take. My record is 16 minutes.
Do you have them signed right there, or do you do the e-sign?
Yeah, we do our e-sign later on. Honestly, I like to have everything with me. It takes me about, depending on the house, it takes me about, anywhere from 15 minutes all the way to 2 hours, to prep for an appointment. It just depends on, what due diligence do I need to do before I go to that appointment based off of a conversation or the relationship that I have or don't have with them. So I like to have everything in print. It makes it pretty easy for me, and I have a giant stack of those papers, laying around all the time. But I have a very specific agenda of which I cover. If they get me off of the agenda, I get back to the agenda as soon as possible. And I find that works pretty well because it covers it covers the relationship piece of it, and it covers the marketing, covers the numbers, and it covers the plan of action, and that's all we need. So
Do you do numbers last first?
So the agenda is their goals, our goals, our process, marketing, pricing, and next steps.
So your comps are
essentially
within
at
the
end.
pricing
Yeah.
piece, yeah.
Do you typically give a price range, or do you both give an exact price?
I am
usually?
as vague as humanly possible.
Until she has to get it on the market.
Until I have to
Yeah,
do it,
yeah.
give 'em-
Yeah.
until we fill out the listing agreement.
Just prepare them up front. Real estate is not black and white, it's a lot of gray.
Yeah.
So if you don't like gray, just start preparing yourself now.
Yeah.
It's
a
gonna
lot
be,
of
your
gray.
walls are gonna be
It's
gray, and so is
really
the price.
uncomfortable.
How extensive is your pre-qualification with them on the phone?
Sure, mine's not that, not super extensive, almost 100% of our listing business is repeat referral based, so the conversation up front is more about just, setting a time for us actually to meet.
Okay.
Asking them about, learning a little bit more about their situation. I need to identify whether I wanna bring a buyer's agent with me or not for that appointment, because a buy-sell appointment is a little bit longer and is a different conversation. So that's really what I'm trying to identify. So between, anywhere from 2 minutes to 15.
And so probably why some of my appointments go long, because if it's a referral base, I first of all, I never assume I'm gonna get the business.
Sure.
But I come in, expecting that I'm gonna win it or earn it.
Mm-hmm.
So even if it's a referral, cause that's the worst thing you can ever have, or even a repeat client, is assume they're yours.
Yeah.
We've won business in the past by,
prepared.
past, their previous agents assumed that they were for Everlocks step with them, and then they did respond well, and then they called us, so we got it. But that being said, so I never assume, but I always come in expecting that I can earn it and win it, and I treat them as professional, and if we're buddies, I'm just gonna tell them real quick, hey, you know what, I know it's gonna be weird because we're buddies, but I'm gonna act like as if I don't know you, and we're gonna be a realtor. And the great news, I would say it's great news, you're gonna see me as professional, so when you tell your friends and family and coworkers about me, you're gonna know this experience too, and not just Kelly's buddy. So, and then I go through and act formal, but normally I know I got a yes. It's kinda like, I guess you go back to dating, it's like, you got a yes for a second date already, I probably go into staging right away. Or I go into condition. So that's why, because for me, if I have to drive back again, that to me is more time than me staying there an extra hour and a half.
I would agree.
So I probably will get into some of that and then map the whole game plan and write that, but, is that your box?
I was gonna say, what I'm noticing changing in the market is people are interviewing more agents.
Yeah.
Interesting. Are they interviewing more agents to get the price they want?
Yeah,
Sometimes.
I would love to know why.
Yeah.
But I
would say
do,
that's part of it.
I don't feel there's as much loyalty. Even people that you may know or have a relationship, it's been surprising that they're also interviewing other people. And maybe, and I
Don't
guess
assume.
everyone
Right.
wants certainty in the market, and their house is
And
gonna
there is
sell
no
for X
certainty in the
amount.
market.
It's just one of those that you've gotta have the scripts and everything, cause then it can become a little complicated. Cause we've had it happen where people will tell them a higher price and they will go with them for the higher price.
That's right.
And so what is the script? All you newbies know this script because I say it all the time. What's the script you use to make sure you warn them of an agent taking a overpriced listing? There are agents out there that will buy your listing, shut up. Just stop talking. And they're going to say, what does that
Don't
mean?
say shut up.
Don't say shut up. Don't say shut up. Just be quiet. They're gonna ask you, what does that mean? They don't know what that means. There are agents out there that are gonna buy your listing because they're looking for leads off your listings. They're looking to get buyers from sign calls and open houses. My job is to sell your house. So then use Nina's script, which is, I don't want to disappoint you later. I want to be honest with you. This is what the market is telling us. It's not even my interpretation. Here's the paperwork. So somebody will come in and buy it at a higher price. They're not worried about selling your house. They're going to get
You wanna
sales
list
off
your,
the
list
buy.
your house. I wanna sell
Yes,
your house.
right.
That's the thing, so.
You wanna
I-
list it or you wanna sell it?
Yeah, so I say they'll list and let it sit, whereas I'm here to sell it.
I'm here to sell your home.
Yeah.
Well, I think ultimately, it can all go back to the only way that we can underprice this house, or the only way we can undersell it, is not take the listing to the market.
That's right.
So, even if I price your house at $1, we're going to be able to, and we let the market see the house, and we list on the best day, and we have a big blowout weekend like we always do, we're gonna ultimately see the market
The
value
market
of the
will
house.
always autocorrect.
Yeah, so let's not worry about the pricing piece at this point. Let's make sure that we get the presentation right, so that we can push the price as high as possible for our current market.
Anybody else have questions? Cheryl?
So just a question on appraisals. As we all know, an appraisal doesn't always necessarily match what the market will bear. So how do you have that conversation? Assuming the appraisal is, very fresh, not old, and they're like, well, it appraised for $1.2 million. What do you mean I can't sell it for that? Tell me what that script looks like.
It's like a refi appraisal that they're speaking of?
No, it's for sale.
For
They
sale.
just
Like
did
a
it in
pre-list appraisal.
preparation.
Yes, they did it
Yeah.
for this appraisal.
Yeah. So I always use the analogy, well, we could go out and get we could spend $2,000 on 5 appraisals, or maybe more than that, and we would get a different price from every appraiser. Think about it from this perspective. When the lender's appraising the house, they're gonna know what it's under contract for, and then they're gonna be comparing that to what the properties have sold for. So they're gonna be looking backward, so we also do need to look backward as well as forward to the current pulse of the market when pricing your property. Because, a fresh appraisal, I have an appraisal on a listing in Buford that's like almost $1 million more than what the market would bear. And it really is a tough conversation, but the fact of the matter is the appraisals are different than the market value, because it's not the appraiser, unless the appraiser actually wants to buy the house, it's not the appraiser who's justifying.
I like the idea of looking backward and forward.
Yeah.
Correct. But I always say a pricing or a purchase appraisal is very different.
Right. It is.
While they don't realize, because they're doing a refi appraisal, or even if it's not on the market, because you haven't set a list price, but a purchase appraisal is very different.
And that's true.
They're conservative.
Because it's true, because a purchase appraisal, what's the intent of the appraiser is to find what is the meeting of the mind between a buyer and a seller, and is that actually fair market value? That is a different appraisal than just saying what your value is. Well, if you don't test the market by being on the market, do you really know what fair market value is? So, the purchase appraiser is much more significant.
It's also going to be different too, because the appraiser when they come in and just do an appraisal for you, they don't have to abide by any of the guidelines that the underwriter, when they turn it in, is going to be looking at. So it's not like I could pull something from 16 miles away that was super unique as well, and be able to justify that price. I would make friends with an appraiser and ask them how they would come up with the value of this property and the process of what they would use. We did that recently on a listing, and it was really eye-opening, and we were able to get that house.
Do you disagree with the one that you have? I mean, I'm
You think
always
it's too
willing
high?
to look at if they've had a really recent one and it was not a refi appraisal. If they just had a flat out appraisal, I will look at it, and if I can use some comp to justify a higher price, then
Ask me when we go on the market, which is in the next few weeks. But no, this is one of these situations where it is a very unique property. The lot is a high priced lot.
Yeah.
So that's really a big piece of it.
Yeah.
So
I would suggest that you bring some people through. Bring some people, some agents
Pre-pricing,
through. Invite some people that have sold in that pocket. Invite some people from the office there as well, and bring them through and get a pricing opinion, on the property, and have give them a bottle of wine or a gift card or something they're coming through to kind of give that pre-market evaluation, because that can also get you some feedback on what you might need to change to get a higher price, but also kind of help you identify it.
I did this, and I'm saying this I haven't done it yet in 2019, but I know when we did the shift the last time, I actually took a couple hours with my clients and we walked through homes and compared. So I'm anticipating that may be something I have to reintroduce into mine.
Somebody else.
I do that with every listing. I take the list seller goes with me to these 3 actives that are available. And they look at it, I said, this is how we're stacking up. This is what buyers are looking at. So how do you think this compares to your house? Where do you think it should be priced now?
Yeah. And I was gonna say, I did actually do that with my highest listing last year, but high end, I walk them with me through the neighborhood, and we do that, like, that may be something as a
That's a good idea.
come through.
Does anybody else have a question, Reagan?
I know, Nina, you had talked about how people are interviewing other agents, and that happened to me this weekend, and it's interesting because the husband and wife were like screaming at each other and disagreement on things, and it was just crazy. But one of the things she said was like, what are you gonna do that the other agent didn't do? Because I like her. We're just gonna change because we want a different brokerage representation. So what are you gonna do different that she didn't do? So how would you guys answer that question?
Well, what did she say she was gonna do?
I'm not sure what she did, but here's my marketing plan and what I would do. And then I also brought up reverse prospecting, where I, could see who was searching on her property, and I could call them and set up an appointment, make sure that they knew about it. And she was like, "Oh, what's that? I need to know what that is." I'm like, "Okay." So I didn't know how you guys would respond to that.
And I think that goes back to what Kelly said too, asking people about their previous experiences with realtors. Have they been successful? Have they been good, bad, indifferent in the very beginning? And then setting expectations, what's your level of motivation to sell this home? And a lot of times I'll ask them, out of everything, we're gonna go through pricing, we're gonna go through marketing, what's most important that I share with you? So I know up front what they're more interested in, then I can gloss over some of the stuff.
Some of the support things. You asked the question of, do we spend more time up front on the phone call or in their actual house? So, what you focus on expands. So one of my things this year is I'm gonna spend more time even on the phone. I may spend the same amount of time in there, but we do ask pretty good pre-qualifying questions for our walk-in, but I feel that, I'm gonna have to listen even more intently this year. Probably what you're saying, Reagan, is like, let's find out more as to why they dislike that other agent, because quite honestly, they could just be, we're in this shift and they're just frustrated because it's been on too long and had nothing to do with them. And so I'm addressing frustration more than I am doing what tactics, strategies, et cetera, she may have done.
Sometimes they just want somebody to listen to them and have a fresh set of eyes on it. You might be telling them the same exact thing. I also find by having an agenda and having a process of exactly how my listing appointment goes, there are very few questions at the end for that reason.
Do you give that to them?
No.
The agenda?
No, it's just mine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's where I write my notes. I have it on the front. It's on the listing packet that I leave with them. I have it on the front of it, and I just flip it over and take notes on it. I know it now, but I like to. Sometimes I go back to it if I feel like we're going off of it.
Does this give you lots of information, things to think about when you go to price your homes? Yes, awesome. We're gonna continue the panels on listing next week, family reunion. We'll do recap family reunion, and then the following week we'll start back with talking about listings with another panel. So I thank you all. Thank you so much for our family reunion. Stay in the room for our little info session. Thank you all. Have a great week and happy Valentine's Day. Thanks, guys.
Yes, thank you for having us.
How do I just